if I at least look back in my life and say, well, I tried, because there's been so many times in my life where, I look back and I go, wow, I was so afraid of failing that I didn't even go for it. And now I don't know if I would have succeeded or not. So I think in the long run, you are going to be happier taking the risk and failing, and that's okay, than having never tried at all.
Well, HiredUp Podcast, we're here with Zach Kornfeld. He's one of the Try guys. They have come out with a New York Times bestseller. They have come out with a documentary recently called Behind the Try. And of course, they are, viral content creators. And we are lucky to have them on the podcast. So, Zach, I've known you for a while. I didn't really know so much. I mean, I knew you had this in you, but I didn't see a whole lot of that, at least when we were hanging out with each other. So I'm fascinated to kind of go at least briefly back to the beginning of when, you got your start at BuzzFeed. Like, what exactly were you doing at the time, and how did you guys sort of transition into, what is now known as the Try guys?
Well, hey guys, thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, when Josh and I knew each other in college, I online content creation, any form of my job, every variation of it was not even close to on my radar. This is as far from what I expected my life would be as possible. And I mean that in the most wonderful way. So I am a YouTuber. I am a business owner. I run a production company. I have a tea company, right? These are all things that are not at all what I was interested in doing. When we knew each other, I was interested in directing. I was interested in filmmaking. That's it. Then I got out to LA. I graduated, and life hit me with reality. I was not doing anything I was happy doing. I was working as a production assistant, and I shouldn't totally disparage it. I had a great 2 years out of college, learning, absorbing, growing. But really what I wanted to do above all was to make. And, I kind of feel silly saying this sometimes, but my job was keeping me from doing. I was working so much that I wasn't actually making anything. And so this is cutting a long story very short. I left my job. I was working freelance, but I was working pretty regularly with a group. And I took a risk to take what then was a lower paying job to work at this then tiny company called BuzzFeed. I was hired on by recommendation of a friend who actually was a fellow alumni with us. And it was something where, like, when I started, I'm not going to lie, I kind of looked down on internet content. I thought it was frivolous. I didn't think it was for me. I didn't think it'd be creatively satisfying to make, at the time there was like 2-minute videos. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Day one, I was like, oh, I'm so wrong. This is so cool. And it was, especially those early days of BuzzFeed Video, it was a small group of young, passionate, wildly creative people who were all experimenting. It's weird to think back to that now. I mean, however many years, only 6 years ago or 7 years ago, but internet video is new, and it was new. And there was so much to explore and discover and test and fail and try again. And through a lot of experimentation and iteration, I started to figure some things out.
That's awesome.
So neat.
Yeah. So you guys basically,
the story goes on, but I was like, I should probably take a breath and let them at least respond to some of that.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to get a sense of, so you started at BuzzFeed. Were you doing content creation? Were you hired on to do that? Or was that something that came like as just an idea of, BuzzFeed Video? We want to just start trying some stuff out.
Right. So I was hired on to make content. The job description, I mean, originally I was a fellow, then junior producer, doesn't fucking matter. I was making short form videos, and they hired people on to be multi-hyphenates. So it kind of was like getting paid to go to grad school. I was every month conceiving, shooting, editing, writing, producing fully 5 pieces of content that would go online all by myself. And so when I was in God damn it, Siri. For some reason, every couple sentences I say something, she's like, what's that? And I'm like, Siri, you need to fuck all the way off. I have an Australian Siri though, so it's at least a little funnier.
Yeah, mine's British. Mine's British. Sounds just a lot more eloquent.
Yeah, by the way, first pro tip of the podcast, if you have not changed the accent on your Siri, you are doing it wrong.
Yeah, they have an Indian one now.
Your tip number one.
All out, so.
Yeah. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, I mean, when I used to be very precious about the content that I made, and making for the internet forced me to let go. So I went from spending 1 year making one piece of content that I was like, it's not as good as it can be, to all of a sudden I made, over 65 things in a year. And it just, my growth was exponential. It was quite a wonderful thing. But yeah, I was hired on to make videos and to crack viral formats, to test and iterate. When something would hit, you would look at that success and go, okay, let's say the title has 4 elements to it. What part of it is the thing that made it work? And so we would dissect. We were a little laboratory, and we were inspired by the people around us. It was kind of like an incubator, but instead of creating products, we were creating viral formats. And around 8 months into it is when my friends and I made one together that would then go on to spawn the Try Guys. We really liked working with each other. The audience enjoyed it. And the one thing we had not tested at that point was a cast dynamic. So we kept doing it. Our managers asked us to stop doing it because it was 4 people working on one thing. But it took on a life of its own. And now here I am 6 years later. We were able to found an independent company. We bought the IP back from BuzzFeed, which they graciously allowed us to take. And now we're about 2.5 years into having an independent company. We're up to, I think, 12 full-time employees. We've got a couple other freelancers who work with us, and it's been a pretty wonderful ride.
That's fantastic, man. I think you said a lot of really great stuff that's full of value. I mean, for one, whether it's, going viral, whether it's just consistent content creation, whether you're a company or an individual, young influencer, I think what you hit on is not to just get in this mode of perfection all the time, and just consistently create content as much as possible. And, that way, not only you get more just stuff out there, you get more feedback.
Who said what completed is better than perfect, right? And there are all these adages that I could live by. Pixar says they don't finish their movies, they just release them. I like to think that it's not about how many home runs you hit, it's how many at bats. We could play this metaphor game all day, but at the end of the day, it's about doing, and the more you do, the better you become.
Right. Exactly. And so the other guys, were you all friends before you started doing this, or were you paired up with each other? Okay. How did that work?
No, not at all. It's the joke that we often go back to is you rub oil on your coworker's naked butt at 8:30 on a Tuesday. You either become friends or enemies real fast, and luckily we became friends.
Oh, that's a really, really profound statement.
Yeah, if you guys haven't tried it, oh my God. I don't know if you have PR yet. We don't. I think, it helps lubricate the relationship, so to speak. No, I cannot probably recommend that, but we did it.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so what other things did you learn about content creation in the beginning? You touched on a little bit, just like, especially coming from your background, our background at Emerson, we had one idea of content creation, then the internet explodes, then the whole, YouTube continues to explode. What other pieces of advice would you say have you come across just from the very beginnings of Try Guys, and what made you guys successful?
I mean, I could give you a whole 3 hours on just this topic, but I think ultimately online content, viral content, quote unquote, the internet, it is about a relationship. It's either a relationship between you and the audience, or really, if you're talking about viral videos, a relationship between different viewers. People use content online. Excuse me. People use content online as a means of communication. So I use this example all the time. I follow Cats of Instagram, and my sister and I will just tag each other or DM each other. And what are we doing in that exchange? We are using a piece of content to say, hey, I love you. This is something that made me think of you, right? So when you see a video and you go, oh, Leslie, I saw this video about redhead problems. Like that's so you. You're just saying, hey, I see you. Sometimes you're posting something as a way to say, hey, world, this is something I want you to see about me. Or hey, world, this is something that I want you to know, right? You can break it down between emotion, identity, information. There are all these things that I used to think about of what function is the video serving in someone's life. But a lot of times it's thinking about, well, I already said function, right? That's the word. A lot of times it's about how are people going to interact with this? How are they going to use it on a one-to-one basis? And then as a creative person, a big difference for me was learning to think about my content in an unselfish way. And what I mean by that is not making something because like, oh, this idea is just so funny. It's just so funny. Like, right, I was coming from the sketch world before that. But funny doesn't necessarily share unless it's one, the funniest thing that has ever been made, or two, goes back to the idea of having a function. So it was just a shift in my brain to think about how am I creating content that will exist within the context of an audience? How am I creating something that serves a function in people's lives, either makes them feel good or helps them express something, et cetera, et cetera?
I think that's fantastic. Fantastic advice. And so I'm interested, and I think you touched a bit upon this in your book, but how has your mindset and worldview changed after so many experiences of kind of pushing your limits, going past your fears, kind of attacking that, in so many different videos that you've done? Like, I'm sure you've dealt with that time and time again, where you're not only are you exposing yourself to millions of people, but you're doing stuff that you're genuinely, have boundaries around and kind of pushing past those boundaries. So after so many experiences of doing that, like, what have you learned?
Did you read my book, Josh? I would have sent you a copy. You didn't ask. You gotta just reach out, buddy. I'm here. Over the years of making Try Guys videos, I guess someone inadvertently came across an ethos, a way of living, and it really did deeply impact each of us as people. And I know for myself, I have grown tremendously by just the act of putting myself out there and getting out of my comfort zone. So a couple things are true, right? Trying new things is the only way to grow, is the only way to expand your horizons. And it's really scary. I think we begin as these fertile, supple little balls of mush with potential. And then as time goes on, we get scared and we start to close off neurons and we say, this is who I am. And this is us, and out there is them. And whatever I don't know is scary and new and unfamiliar. But what's also true, or, that's not true. Fuck that, break that down. You have to fail to grow. You think about riding a bike, you're going to fall. You have to fall. And unless you are willing to put yourself in a position where you're willing to fail, where you're willing to do something that may not work, you will never grow. You will be stagnant. And that's fine. Like, some people want that. Some people want their same dinner every night. They want comfort. I'm not going to begrudge you, but I'm also here to say that there is a whole world out there. And if you I'm kind of conflating two ideas here, but one, if you allow yourself to dare to experience it, there's some really cool stuff, right? People you don't know, cultures you're unfamiliar with, food that may seem scary and weird and new. And then, Siri, I swear to God, get out of here. But then also, if you are an ambitious person, if you have creative ambitions, you need to allow yourself to fall and fail. You have to. you have to fail. If you're going to write a script, you need to write a shitty script. If you're going to create a business, you have to write a bad business plan or make a bet that's going to lose money. It is the only way, but there's real payoff in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that applies to whatever you're doing in life, whether it's creating content, whether it's starting a business. I mean, just growing as a human being is, we all grow out of our comfort zone. So
think about dating. If you don't put yourself out there, well, then you're not going to find somebody, right? Like you have to get rejected. You have to. You got to scratch up your knees. It's how we grow. Yeah. And it's scary. I mean, we all have this paralysis. We all have this, I think we are taught that failure is bad. We're given a binary, and I don't think failure is bad. I think it's awesome. Failure means that you tried. Failure means that you did something audacious and you swung for it. Right. We can laugh if you swing and miss, but we're going to laugh with you and help you get back up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm curious, Zach, what was that transition like from the comfort of BuzzFeed to then stepping out and doing your own thing? Because it wasn't just one of you leaving to go do this. It was a group of you. So it was this exodus of people that went to go do their own thing. What was that like? I mean, I'm sure that there was some fear in stepping out and doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about fear of failure? We were terrified. The decision, it was a pretty clear and unanimous one. We felt that we had just, it was time to try something new. We had grown as large as we could within a certain box, and we knew that to continue to grow, we had to take some risks. And I'm lucky that I got to do it with friends. I would say that, there's always the warning and fear of working with friends, and I hear that, and I will tell you, like, yes, be sure that you have a strong foundation and know the risk associated. But if you can go out into the world and do something with people you love and trust, it's really helpful to have them there when the times get hard. Yeah, I mean, it was scary. We made up a business plan. We were wrong. Like every projection we had was totally off. Where we thought our income would come from was totally off. And we were taking a bet. When we were working at BuzzFeed, it grew from, I want to say, like 6 or 8 to 20 something million subscribers. So we knew we had somewhere between 0 and 20 something million fans. I was hopeful that we would have our audience continue to follow us, but yeah, we never actually knew what our audience was. And so there was a huge amount of risk in that as well. And then just like monetarily, like we each put our own money in. I didn't know at the time, but Ned, one of my co-owners who had a newborn baby at that time, like his bank account got dangerously low with a newborn there, but we believed in ourselves, and the risk paid off.
When was that moment that you thought, okay, this could be working? Like, when was that moment that a video got a certain amount of views or something happened to where you went, okay, I think we might really have something here. This is going to work?
For the new company, I am fortunate to say it was basically the launch. We got really lucky, and frankly, we benefited from the YouTube algorithm. A lot of times people will bemoan the algorithm, but in this case, it really was our friend. The audience basically interacted with our videos, or rather the algorithm treated our videos the exact same way as when they came out of BuzzFeed. They said the same people are watching this and engaging with it the exact same way, so we're going to recommend it the same way. And actually, to the point that our viewership was almost exactly the same upon launching, but our subscribers were really low because so many of our fans, it took them about a year to realize that we were a new channel at all. They just saw the video, they clicked the video, they kept watching the video. And it took a couple explicit shout outs to migrate them full time. But yeah, we had about a month and a half of terror and fear. And then once we launched, things worked out pretty well for us.
That's great.
It's a boring story, right? You want to hear some real, like, I had to climb a mountain and fight a dragon, but we launched and it did pretty okay.
I was moments away.
Yeah.
No, that's really good. I mean, because I think it's so good for people to hear about. I mean, like we were talking about a minute ago, I mean, there's so many folks out there that want to make the jump, but they're just caught in the comfort of what they're currently doing. And so to hear people that have made that jump and then it's worked out, and even though it was like really terrifying at one point, is really beneficial. Where did, I'm curious, like when you guys went out on your own, where did the ideas start coming from? I mean, because now you're out, you have to make all these pieces of content. Like, where are those ideas coming from?
Well, the ideas were always coming from the same place. Even when we were at BuzzFeed, we were essentially a self-run pod. So there was no one who was ever dictating our creative. That always came from us. So that was the one area I'd say we were most confident in. That said, we definitely had a little chip on our shoulder, and we wanted to prove going independent that we could do the exact same thing and better without this giant corporation behind us. Giant company. They're not, they're not Unilever. So we made a specific, I remember we had this intentional move where we said, we are going to not make as much money this first year because we are going to bring people on to help us. We are going to build out a team. And I know a lot of YouTubers who are friends of mine, and I adore them for it, but I don't know how they put so much just on their own backs. They are one man, one woman machines. And I said, no, we want to make content that looks and feels big. And we're not aiming for lesser digital. We want to be almost as good as TV. We want to show that we can do anything. So our first hire was a producer, and we brought a really incredible editor on. We started to slowly build our team out. And as I said, we have 12 full-time staff members right now. That was intentional from the beginning. We wanted to surround ourselves with incredibly creative and talented people who could push us and push our content in bigger and better directions.
That's great. And, it's one risk in of itself to leave the company and do it on your own. I mean, I'm seeing this trend for several years now of just power. And this kind of goes back to HiredUp as well. Power being transitioned kind of back to the people, putting power back in the people's hands. So you don't necessarily, because of social media, because of all these outlets, you don't have to work for a company to put out your value, so to speak. You have talents, you have these things that you're good at. We're at a point now where anyone can start an online business selling anything, courses, whatever, creating content, and they don't need a big corporation. They don't need that sort of thing behind them. I mean, if anything, we've seen that in Wall Street. This past week with GameStop, I mean, the largest hedge fund in the world is now on Reddit. So it's pretty crazy to see. But I've seen that trend for a while. But my question is, transitioning to your own business, like, how did you guys come out with? I assume you guys have multiple sources of income, right? I mean, whether it's your tea company, whether it's, Keith has some hot sauce or something that he sells, apparel. Like, how did you guys kind of manage all those different things and, or start them to begin with?
So I'd say there are two questions in there, right? There's how do you come up with different revenue streams, and how do you manage different revenue streams? So I think it's really important that anything you do with the aim of making money, you do it genuinely and from a place of passion. If I were to make, what's the worst idea I could think of? I don't know. Try Guy's life insurance. It's like, is that really something that he's passionate about, or is he just trying to take my money, right? So everything that we made, we wanted to care about. And so the first year was really about expanding our content. That's why we made all these different shows on our channel. That's why we went on tour and we wrote a book. We had an option. Like the first when we talk to editors about the book, they're like, why don't you just like write about the videos you've already made? And we're like, no, that sucks. You think of yourself as a fan of your own content, and what would you want to see? So we wanted our book to feel unique and to be something new that they hadn't seen, something that could teach people what we had learned and help them in their lives. The tour that we went on, we could have just gone up on stage with stool and microphones, but we're like, no, fuck that. I want to be an 80s rock star, And so the products that we've been doing, it's almost been more about unlocking dreams that we have instead of what do we think can make money. And same with like the merch that we have. It's like, we don't sell almost anything that just says the Try Guys, like I wear stuff we make stuff that I want to wear. It just stuff that we think is cool. Merch specifically, I think also goes to a sense of community building, and we can talk about that separately. So that's to me, like when you're looking at what revenue streams can you come up with, what do you uniquely care and are uniquely passionate about? That's where the idea for T came from. T is not, I guess it is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it was not something that I was like, yo, this is my retirement fund. It came from, I suffer from chronic pain. I don't sleep because of it. I need something that's anti-inflammatory and also something that can wake me up because I'm in pain every moment of every day. And I thought if I could come up with a product that would help me, well, I bet it might help some other people out there as well. And then if you, I talk and talk and talk. So there was another question, but if you want to ask me anything before I move on.
Go ahead.
And then on the question of how do you manage your revenue streams, the best piece of advice I ever got, well, I've gotten a lot of good pieces of advice. The best piece of business advice I ever got was, it's actually in our book. Kevin Lin, who's the co-founder of Twitch, told us to replace yourself. And that was something that was really hard for me. As a creative person, I had this false belief that we were only successful because of my golden touch on every edit, on every, signing off on every approval. But giving up control on our edits actually made our videos richer and better, as we found people who were frankly better at us and could bring their own unique voices. So every step of the way, I've tried to identify what are my strengths, where is my time best spent, and who are the better people who I can bring who can push our content and help us grow.
Yeah, it's definitely a Tim Ferriss thing too. Right?
Yeah, that's great. I like that. Well, and I think a lot of people have trouble with that. But if you think about it, and it's hard. And in business too, there's so many that have these businesses that it's only them. And so if they were gone tomorrow, the business is gone. And I don't think that you really want that. Like most people don't, deep down, they don't want that. They want that legacy to keep going. And in order to do that, you do have to replace yourself, like you're saying.
Well, and that's the way that you are going to get to that next level. And look, I get mentally, like, especially if you are a startup, if you were just starting out, the success you had is because of the relentless hours and hard work that you put in. And that's great. I'm not trying to take that away from you. In fact, kudos, applause, like you fucking did it. But if you're trying to get to the next level, you got to learn to let go because there's only so many hours in the day. So where are you going to spend your time? And who can you bring in to help you work smarter?
Yeah, it's very true.
Absolutely. What else, man?
So I'm curious about like the actual content creation because Zach, we live in a time where everybody wants to be a content creator, right? So
yeah, how about that?
Everybody wants to be a content creator.
What have we done? How have we totally just fucked the brain of a generation? No one wants to be teachers. How come no people don't want to teach? We need those. We don't need more content. But hey, I've fallen victim to the same disease, I guess.
Everybody wants to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to know from your perspective and your experience, what does it take to actually do that? Because I think that for me, like content creation is two things. There's this mix between the quantity and the quality. And if you can hit that just right, then you have something. But it also has to be stuff that is a value add and that's interesting. And so, if you were going back to yourself when you were just starting, or if you were imparting some wisdom on somebody who was just becoming or wanted to be a content creator, what are the things that you would tell that person?
Well, there is frankly a lot of nitty gritty when you're first starting out. Like, you need to be a student and a fan of whatever platform you are trying to become successful on. Each platform has their own set of rules, their own algorithms, their own unique audience behavior. If you create one piece of content and upload it to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, it is going to perform wildly differently. It's going to be interacted with totally differently. And so your job is to know, what are those differences and what kind of content do you make? What kind of content do you want to make? Where is it going to thrive? There are also the essentials of frequency of upload. Your consistency is a huge thing, right? So especially for YouTube, it's consistency of length, consistency of upload time and date, consistency of talent, consistency of tone, and God, there's one more. Quality, maybe that one, right? Like, you're creating you're creating a contract with your audience. You are saying, hey, keep coming back because I'm going to give you this thing that you can expect. And when you break that promise, well, you're breaking trust. So a lot of it in the beginning is about building that relationship. So that's the early on stuff, right? Like, you need to kind of find your niche, find what you're good at, understand how to optimize your content so that you're not just, shooting stuff out into the void. You upload 8 YouTube videos in one day and then don't post for 2 months. Well, that's probably not a good idea. So learn how, what the platforms want from you. That said, I also think there's a mistake that many people make. I've certainly made it, which is being a slave to the algorithm and of looking around at what other people are doing and going, okay, well, this is the trend, so I got to jump on that. And I got to do this thing. And it is so easy to get burnt out in this profession, and you need to protect yourself. So you need to always be doing something that you love, or else, frankly, you're not going to make it. And maybe you will. Like, you might make it for 2 years, you'll make it for 3 years, but down the road, you are going to find yourself radically unhappy.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And let me ask you this too. I mean, there are so many different buckets now of content. I mean, people are making entrepreneur stuff. They're making fitness videos. They're making, things about filmmaking and camera gear. I mean, there's so many different buckets.
You know what I just heard of today is house cleaning YouTube. It's like people clean their house and then people watch it and are like, oh, that's the shit right there. I can't think of anything that would give me more stress and anxiety personally, but like, that's great, right? Like, you can be the best at cleaning your house, and that's okay. I think people should, accept and love the niches in which they live. And if you are a house cleaning YouTuber, don't look at what some lifestyle vlogger's doing and go, but I could have those numbers. In life, you got to keep your eyes on your own paper. And your success is not dictated by others' success. If someone has more numbers than you, that's okay. Doesn't mean that you are less successful or bad. You can be, wonderful within your own bubble, and that is great.
What do you do if you want to start creating content in one of those buckets that's very saturated?
I kind of do that all the time, right? Like, our format, we are chameleons by design. We try different things. In fact, I would say our show is a show of formats, and we do, it's always different, much to, we make it very hard on ourselves for that reason. Like, we don't have just a plug and play video that we make and can make 50 of them a year. I think you just need to think about, what are you bringing? What is it through your life experience, through your sense of humor, through your personality, through the way that you shoot things? How are you going to imbue yourself on it, right? I think that's true of any art. Like, you can enter somewhere new, learn from the best, steal like an artist, but bring a little bit of yourself in it and see what value you can provide.
That's good. That's great.
But also don't think that you have to, like, Like, if you don't understand TikTok, if I would recommend you figure it out. But if you're like, no, like it's really not for me, but I crush at Instagram, or vice versa, right? For me, like I kind of suck at Instagram. I'm starting to accept it. I think that's okay. You don't have to be great at everything.
Yeah. Are you on Clubhouse?
I am on Clubhouse. I'm starting to get it a little bit. A little bit. You
guys have a podcast, right?
We do. In fact, our company has 3, soon to be 4. So we have our main show called the TryPod, which is just a hangout comedy podcast. We have one called You Can Sit With Us, with our partners. That's not with us. And then I'm launching a show in just about 2 weeks now called Guilty Pleasures, which is a comedy pop culture podcast looking at some of our favorite movies and TV shows and breaking them down, joking around about them.
That's awesome. And that's a good segue into my next question. And I think you all touched a little bit upon this again in your book, but you guys have so much going on. I mean, what is your typical morning routine like? We're kind of big on morning routines here. We love talking about it, time management and everything. So I'm curious. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to tell you what, I'm still looking for my ideal day. I'm one of these days, I'm going to crack it. I'm getting close. I try and wake up at 6:30. I actually wake up at 7. I take my dog for a walk. Here's the big change that I'm trying to make is to not ingest too much news and social media in the morning. I think your brain is really fertile at that time, and whatever you fill it with is going to kind of occupy your brain space for the day. So if I'm writing like that day, because I'm trying to do some scripted writing on the side as well, that is a project that we don't have yet on your list, right? Give myself the space to do that. I live on this thing. I got a bullet journal that's new for me this year. And so putting down what I'm working on that day, but I try and look, it's very easy to be a slave to email. So I try and have certain times for that, block shoot, or I'm starting to lose my, wow, please edit that out. I just short circuited. I try and just put as much stuff together as possible. So if I have meetings, can we go back to back to back to back? So I have a stretch of a few hours to be creative. But frankly, every day is different. There's always a different fire, or, some days I'm filming, some days I'm giving notes, some days I have nothing to do. And then I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And then it's 9 p.m. and I'm like, oh, wait, I actually have 8 long-term projects I should have been thinking about. Whoops. Try and find time for yoga in there. The answer is I don't have a morning routine and I'm desperately looking for one. Can you guys give me one?
This probably is about 30 to 40% of our day. We just talk about optimizing our day. So, totally. Yeah.
It's Monday, so it's I'm giving myself the break of you were like, hey, you want to be on a podcast? I'm like, awesome. That means I don't have to actually start thinking about my day until after lunch. Hell yeah.
Sure, let's do it. That's funny. I'm curious about. I'm fascinated by this whole content creation thing because you're a guy who has sort of cracked that code in the content creation world. How much time should people be spending on the pre-planning and the sort of perfection of quality of the content that they're making, rather than just filming, putting it out? Is it more of a repetition game, or is it more of does there need to be some groundwork planning that takes place?
That's a fascinating question. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think about my own content, and frankly, it depends on what the content is. I know that's a bit of a cop-out, but I've got more for you, right? I do think a YouTube video should be thought out and planned. And frankly, I hate to admit this, your title and thumbnail combo is 80% of what you're doing. It's what is it? The frame is everything. But then when you're in the video, you have to keep people's attention. So I personally, everything I do is outlined. I really strongly believe in 3-act structure. I am not just about filming my day and figuring out what it is at the end. But that's my filmmaking roots and writing roots coming back to me. It's how I process information. I can't imagine doing it any other way. Sometimes though, you open up TikTok and you see something and you have an idea and just go for it. I think it's less about, there's not necessarily a one size fits all for how to approach pre-production, but I will say, and this goes back to what I said earlier, there is probably the blanket advice that to just let go at a certain point. And once you've made it, know that it's not going to be perfect, but that is okay. I alluded to this, but one of my favorite pieces of writing ever, it was actually an Ira Glass talk called The Gap. Do you guys know this one?
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah.
I watch it every couple months just to kind of get my spark back. And it talks about when you're a creative person, it's frustrating in the beginning because there's a gap between your taste, which is impeccable, and your ability, which is not. And the distance between those two is really, really quite sad. And the only way to close that gap is to just make stuff again and again and again and go through the whole process and let it go out into the world, accept critiques from yourself and from others, and build on it. I would say so much of my early career was spent trying to perfect one thing, which is frankly a fruitless endeavor. And I only got good when I learned to let go.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
That's really good. What's your perspective on the daily vloggers out there? What do you think about that?
My perspective is there are some I enjoy quite a bit. It's not something that is for me. And I don't know personally how much longevity you can get out of it, just because I guess for me, it's just not something I'm interested in, because I'm not interested in directly turning my life into my content and career. To an extent I have, right? When you are a content creator online, a large part of your success does come from this parasocial relationship where you are a friend to the audience. They feel like they know you intimately. Look, I play myself online, so I certainly am not far removed from them. I'm closer to them than I am closer to, than say I am The Rock, who's playing he's kind of playing the same guy too. But that said, it's really important for me to have a distance in my life and to have walls and boundaries just for my mental health. But also that is, I think it's also just a creative consideration for me. I'm not interested in just going out and I was like, my life's not that cool. I'm sorry, it isn't. I told you my morning routine. I walk my dog, I come upstairs, I take a shit, I check my emails. There's nothing to film there. So, and then I complain about my back pain. So I'm much more interested in, I'm much more interested in creating setups and producing things to try, as opposed to daily content. And also that, it's just relentless. When does it end? If you are creating daily content, I talked about how I can't keep up with Instagram. It's just frankly too much for me, and I'm interested in the long game.
It's a great answer.
Yeah.
And you see it too with these people that do the daily vlogs. At a certain point, they do have to stop. At a certain point, they all end that process.
Right.
Yeah, and there's some incredible hustle that goes into there. I am never going to say that I look down on it or don't respect it. It's just I'm not capable of it, for so many reasons, stamina wise and creatively. It's just not where my head or heart is at all. I mean, our videos, they take 6 weeks. Our videos are long. We go through several rounds of edits. We are crafting stories. I am horrified at the thought of my first take being released to you hear how much I'm stammering on this. Can you imagine? No way.
Power of editing.
Yeah.
I love it. How much of your collective success has been luck? How much of your success has been skill, or a combination of both?
Yeah, I would say 100% of my success is skill. I'm the most talented man in the history of. No, it's always luck, man. I'm incredibly fortunate and lucky, and that goes down to when I was born, where I was born, the parents I had, the school I had the opportunity to go to, which led to the college I went to go to which introduced me to somebody who then said, hey, you want to come work at this place where I met these guys and we made this thing. And it just happened to be at a time when the algorithm was fertile for us and the audience was ready for the type of content we were making. And I was open and receptive to what they were saying. Life is chaos. It is, if you tried to write the story of my life, you would say that's a weird, stupid, unbelievable story. You never know how points are going to connect, but I'd be selling myself short if I said that there wasn't also skill and work ethic and talent that went into it. But, there's the classic adage that luck favors the prepared. Frankly, I also look back in my life in times where I could have and should have done things differently and wonder what different versions of success would look like had I worked a little harder, worked a little smarter. But life afforded me the opportunity, and it hit me at the right time, and here I am.
Yeah. Take advantage of the moment. Absolutely. Well, this has been great, man. I'm really just happy to catch up with you, and I'm happy for all of your success, man. And I look forward to staying in touch as we move along here. So I really appreciate you taking the time today.
I'm glad you reached out, and I'll say a new piece of advice that I'm trying to learn is to check your DMs, and Josh knows well enough that he could have found my phone number and probably has my phone number.
I still
but
have
he DM'd me and it went into my little folder, and I never checked that other folder. But because of Clubhouse, I'm like, you know what? Let me check that other folder, and then there he was. So again, luck. You were like the fifth message down, then because you had just messaged me like 20 minutes earlier.
That's great.
That's perfect, and it worked out. I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, I don't know. Thanks for having me, guys. I would say to anyone out there, just go for it. I should probably say just try, right? That's kind of the catchphrase that I should coin. Well, we'll workshop it.
I like that. That's good though. Just go for it. I think it's good. I think everybody needs to hear that. And, for anybody out there if it's not content creating, whatever it is, if it's a new business or an endeavor or whatever, just
asking out that girl or guy, just go for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like if you have this business idea that you want to go after, I made a series about this as well. There are ways to start a business pretty cheap from your bedroom. Like you can make a swing. I'm not going to tell you to, mortgage your house and put up your life savings and risk it all. Like, don't gamble, don't be stupid, but also look at your situation and ask yourself, can I go for this? And will I be happier if I at least look back in my life and say, well, I tried? Because there's been so many times in my life where, I look back and I go, wow, I was so afraid of failing that I didn't even go for it. And now I don't know if I would have succeeded or not. So I think in the long run, you are going to be happier taking the risk and failing, and that's okay, than having never tried at all.
It's great. It's fantastic advice.
Yeah.
We need to stick that at the beginning, Josh.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Evan has a quote. He's like, the most intense emotion is regret.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that hits hard. That, yep. The regrets don't leave you. I got them. They're deep seared into my heart. They're scarred, and no amount of success and happiness will frankly heal those. So don't let them happen.
Yeah. It's true.
There you go.
Zach, thank you so much again. This has been fun.
Pleasure. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right.
And hey, if you're listening out there, give this podcast a subscribe, rate us 5 stars in the store. You know the deal. We'll have new episodes every week.
But we have a couple a week.
Yeah, a couple a week.
All right, there you go.
These out. Yeah. Thanks for that plug there. And if you want to plug anything as well, I mean, you have the podcast, the TryPod. What are your socials for anyone out there who's not in the Try Guys demographic who's listening to this right now?
Yeah, if you're like, who the fuck is this guy? Go give us a watch. We're at the Try Guys. But we got 2 podcasts. Guilty Pleasures is out now. Everywhere podcasts are findable.
And your book, Zach, is on Amazon, correct?
Yeah, you'll find the shit. If you want to find it, just good old Google's your friend. I believe in you. You'll figure it out.
Just
Whatever you
type it
want.
in.
If you're like, hey, I want a sweatshirt with that guy's face, I probably got you covered.
All right, man.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Cool. Be well.